Hey YouTube, this is basically going to be a update of the Fuggnugget for the most part, and a little bit on the 3-gallon batch. Okay, there's the Fuggnugget going into the keg. Here's the Fuggnugget coming out of the keg. Looks pretty good so far. I'm pretty happy with the color. This will take a while, but that's what we're doing today, is transferring straight from the fermenter into the corny. When I keg, I don't use a bottling bucket. Now, the batch that's still inside, which is the 3-gallon batch, which I'm going to bottle, I'll transfer that to a bottling bucket first, and let it settle out. As much as anything, because I try to be real careful not to get the bottom of this bucket with this siphoning system, but I try really careful with when I'm bottling to keep anything in the bottom. Because the truth is that if you get a little bit of that stuff into your keg, it's going to settle out on the bottom. It's going to work out. When you're bottling, it's going to be there. And so, especially since this is one that I hope to submit these bottles, I want them as clean as possible. So I will definitely be moving that to a bucket. You just got to be, ready with the star sand. Make sure everything's really nice and clean when you're going to do that. The reason we don't here is just that. I don't want to add a step between here and here if I don't have to. And I don't have to, so I'm not going to. I'm not bottling any of this. This is all going in the keg. Hopefully I have enough CO2 to get it carbed. Whether I'll have enough to dispense, I don't know. I should have enough to get it carbed. And that's all I'm worried about right this minute. So, like I said, I'll go inside. At some point I will talk about the joys of CO2 tanks later in the house, and that'll come up in a couple seconds on the video, and that'll be the other part of the update today. But this is the Fuggnugget going in the keg. Well, there's not a lot of light in there. That is the Fuggnugget in the keezer with carb on it. I'm going to try to make it quick because it was long when I did it the first time. Okay, so first let me show you, I've made some changes basically to my keezer. Drilled a hole and put a tube in, moved the CO2 to outside. Yeah, there's a variable electronic hodgepodge down there. Most of that is not hooked up stuff at the moment, but that tank is pretty small. That's about a 12-ounce CO2 tank, which means that it's about half the size of this one. We'll get to that one in just a second. What I use typically are JT 20-ounce. I have a 24-ounce CO2 tanks, paintball tanks. And that's worked pretty well to this point. And at some point I will change to a 5-pound CO2 tank, which I can get around me for under $100. I can do that. About $60 for the tank, about $21.50 for the gas inside it. Not horrible. I'm leaving on vacation in a week to go see Heavy Rift Brewing in St. Louis, and do all the rest of St. Louis. I'm going on vacation, and spending that $100 was a little more than I was prepared to do right now. Filling this tank cost me between $4 and $5, depending on which place I take it to. So I took this particular tank up there a week or so ago, and it's about an hour away. Every place for me is an hour away if you pay attention to the videos. And I had the tank filled. No problem. Threw it in the trunk and drove home. I didn't take the time to take a cooler, and I just figured I could drive home and I'd be fine. Well, it was hot enough outside that the burst disc, which inside here is this little valve, and that little valve, see, is open here because this one is broken. There's a piece of brass foil that goes across there. Burst it. Everything comes out. I don't know if you can see the little hole. There's a little hole in the side. All the CO2 comes out. So that you don't break the tank. It's a good idea. And in theory, if you go looking, you will find out, oh yeah, you just broke your burst discs. Not a big deal. Every place that fills them carries these discs. Well, That might have been true at one time. Two things are fighting against me in that particular fight. One, paintball is nowhere near as popular around here as it used to be. The paintball stores are pretty well gone. And secondly, those people who are still doing paintball have mostly moved to compressed air. There's not the demand that there used to be. Went everywhere. Nobody had one of these. And that's the short version of the story. There's a version which includes me going to a store, waiting for 30 minutes and not being helped, going back to that store because I didn't have a better store to go to, and after 30 minutes another guy came out and told me that, oh yeah, we have a guy that knows how to do it, but our tank is empty. Then I went to a different town an hour away, and they looked all over. Yeah, I'm sure we have these. We always had them. None. Okay, didn't have them. And so I had pretty well decided that the Fuggnugget might just have to sit in secondary until I got back from vacation, which isn't horrible, but that was a little longer than I wanted it to sit. It had sat for a good long time, and it's an IPA. I don't want it to sit for too long. It's an IPA. It's going to start losing hops at some point here, and so I wanted it kegged. And so then I remembered that when I first started, I started with this tank and the tank that's down there. I got these from my cousin. They're kind of old. They were full when I got them. And I used it and it worked just fine. However, these tanks were too old to be refilled. It's like any other gas tank. It needs to be hydro tested. They put it in water, expand it, make sure that it's safe. And you got to do that every 5 years. But the hydro test costs about the same as this tank. This tank, if you buy it at Walmart or one of the other sporting goods stores, is about $24. Unfortunately, at one of them, it's $39, and that's the place with much better service. But at $39 plus $5 to fill it, it's $45. Well, the 5-pound tank costs $60, so it was hard to justify spending $45 to do this beer and not just getting the other tank. And so I was just holding off. Then I had the epiphany that these tanks aren't any good because they have to be tested, but the little discs are good. And so I started with that little 1-pound tank, or that little 12-ounce tank. And as I loosened it, lo and behold, then I remembered that both of these tanks had CO2 when I got them, and I never used the little one, so I had a 12-ounce tank. It's a small tank. It's enough to carbonate it, and with the new system I'm using, which is carb it up and then turn the gas off and then dispense with the pressure that's in the keg, which has worked okay so far. It's coming out carbed and it's pushing okay. I'd seen, while trying to sort this out, I had seen that in somebody's forums. That's working, and so I can put that off until after I come back. But then I did take the burst disc out of here and insert it in here, and this tank should be good to go. Of course, the one in that tank, I loosened. I had a crescent wrench, but I mean, no pressure at all. This one came out of that tank, no pressure at all. This one, you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it's not very square anymore, or I guess, straight-sided. This one required a wrench, then some vice grips, then some channel locks, and about an hour to remove from this tank. In part that's probably because it burst. There was a lot of pressure on those brass threads, but as soon as it turned a little, finger tight, pulled it out, put it in, CO2 should be not much of an issue now. Okay, we are going to shoot a quick tasting. I'm also trying this with straight with LifeCam software and not my broadcasting software to see how that works out. But here's the Fuggnugget. We got a fair amount of chill haze going on there, but it's also got it's not clear. It's certainly not, and it may never be. But this is still not very many pints into the process. It's got a pretty decent head on it. I'm pretty happy with the carbonation at this point in the head.
smells very nice. I really like the two different hops there, because really your Nugget's a very your traditional, more citrusy, piney kind of hops, and your Fuggles is kind of like a Willamette. It's more of an earthy kind of hops, and I think that they go together quite nicely in there. There's not a lot of malt in the back of it. Of course, it's pretty chilled yet. But there's backbone there. It appears to be reasonably balanced that way. It's got a fair amount of bitter, a little more bitter than some of the pure hop forward IPAs that I've made. But that's kind of how I wanted this one. I wanted it a little more on the bitter side. It's still not, like a 90. It's not going to pucker your mouth or anything. But it's definitely going to put a little bitter on your tongue. It's very nice. I think it's scheduled be between 60 and 70, and it's probably right there. Very happy with the Fuggnugget. All right, that was just a quick update. I didn't want to make this too long. Cheers, 17.